to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. That's Tom Dutta like butter, if you don't know how to say that by now. If you're just with us, it's welcome. We are live streaming. What that means is we're peeking in the studio. We're live streaming across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and now Rumble. So if you're on the feed, you can post a question live. We'll see it in studio, communicate with our guest. He's in the green room. I want to tell you a bit about him in just a moment. But our show is taking off, and I want to say thank you. Because of you, we have talented guests coming to the show, sharing their stories. Telling stories is really how you can participate in knowledge in their hero's journey. And I want to say that we're booked out 3 months every week, and this is my second interview day after day, so you're keeping me busy, and I'm just loving it. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Fabrice. Make sure I say his last name right. Desmarescaux. He's going to correct me. I know he's got a little French in him there. It's just like an Indo-Canadian to butcher a Frenchman's name, but he'll tell us more. So as you know, I vet hard. Not everybody gets on the show. Less than 1% of the world come on to my show because I wanted to create a show that challenged people who had found something deep in themselves and learned about themselves, particularly their failures, and then transformed and gave back by making an impact on the world. So I wrote Fabrice and I said, hey, tell me more about why you're a fit for the show. Here's some of what he said to me. Off my paper, here's some notes. He said, I'm a big fan of the hero's journey, Tom. Leaving my country, building a life halfway around the world, reinventing my banking career at 40, founding and selling a firm in my 50s. I achieved some personal and professional success in life. But then he says, the lessons I draw in my book and that I bring to my clients come from my failures. Now that's powerful. Professional failures driven by fear, ignorance, or greed. Now, when's the last time, everyone, you heard somebody talk that way? Being led by my ego and arrogance, demonstrating top decile amounts of selfishness and self-preservation, which led to divorce, addictions, my daughter's moving to a different continent. Over the years, I'm now 60. Oh boy, he looks a lot younger. I've been able to contemplate on my journey and reflect. So today's word of the day is reflective, everyone. He says that he works with clients in search for performance, and a lot of times it's about external markers of success. We keep coming back to the meaning and internal markers of fulfillment in terms of what he's learned and he's going to teach us. He says, what drove me now, then, and now? Finding wisdom, making sense of childhood, spiritual quest, need to demonstrate competence, power of commitment, money versus success, ultimately the inevitability of death. And that threw me when I read his book. I wasn't prepared for that. All questions that will be relevant to most curious individuals and leaders in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Fabrice. Welcome, Fabrice.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, did I butcher your name or did I say it right?
No, I think you did okay, yeah.
Okay.
Most people call me Fabrice because the last name is unpronounceable anyway.
Okay. Up in North America, you're in Jakarta somewhere today, right?
Yeah, I've been in Jakarta for the last 2 days visiting clients. I live in Singapore. Jakarta is about an hour flight south of Singapore, so it's a short commute, and I come here quite often.
Well, it's kind of you do that.
I can show you the skyline if you want.
Yeah, let's take a look. Show us.
It's 6 a.m. here, and so it's just about daybreak.
I'm going to full screen you there. Wow. Yeah, so. Wow, look at that, everybody. A view of Jakarta at 6 a.m. That's a first on the Quiet Warrior Show. Thank you, Fabrice. And now you'll learn that my brain is creative and kind of strange. It goes in journeys. So in my laundry room, we have a fabric softener called Febreze. So now I've drawn a mental picture so I don't forget your name. Some might know I had a brain injury in 2018 and sometimes lose my thought. And that's actually a truth. That's one of the things I relate to your work about healing the brain. So, hey, listen, tell us, you were once with McKinsey Company in 2004, and then you left, and then you're back. Just build us a little bit of what that story is. What do you do today?
Yeah, there was no planning in that story. I followed a pretty linear path in my first half of life, studying hard, working hard, joining what was at the time, in the early 90s, joining prestigious consulting firm.
Yeah.
Became a partner. Enjoyed it, I must say. Even though I turned my back to that career and then became something very different, I would be lying if I said, oh, I was mistaken and this was not my true path in life. I think I really thoroughly enjoyed the work of consulting. And I grew just tired of it after 12 years. And
so you're back there now, and you're
so I left, went on to do something very different for almost 20 years. And that something very different, which we can talk about if you want, brought me in a space where I essentially work and guide leaders and their teams.
Wonderful.
I like to call myself a coach, but I'm more of a guide and someone who walks the path alongside my clients. And that was attractive to McKinsey again, and they say, why don't you come back? And so 3 years ago, I came back to the firm.
Wonderful. Well, I'll tell you what, here's what we're going to do. Rather than me asking you questions as a talking head, everybody knows we're going to take you into Plato's garden. And if you haven't been here before, everybody, I'm going to ask the big question. Fabrice, are you ready to go into Plato's garden?
Yeah, ready?
Okay, and his answer was yes. Right answer. So if you're ready to go into Plato's garden, watch this, everyone. Fabrice, watch this. All right. Welcome to Plato's Garden. Well, some people out there know that I'm in the second year of a doctoral degree at a university. You might have seen that in a little video. And so I learned something that Fabrice knows well, which is the topic of critical thinking. So Fabrice, let me just set this up for the audience. Those watching us, everyone will see this on the screen. I'm narrating it for those who will listen on the podcast. So Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece. He was a founder, apparently, of the Platonist school of thought in the academy, from the Greek word academia, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world, apparently. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take Fabrice, you on a journey, just having conversations through these three areas. Macro. So when we talk macro, it's like what was happening in the global world around you that influenced your public work. Some go back as early as their youth. Today, we might say, well, there's a war going on in part of the world, and that's impacting my work. 2 is mezzo. Fabrice, what was happening in your sector, your industry, or wherever you do your work that has influenced you? And 3, and this is my favorite, Fabrice, as you know, micro. What was happening in your personal life that may have influenced your public works? And this can go right back to childhood. So I'm going to remove that off the screen now. And we're just going to riff and tell stories. So I'm going to set this up with the opening scene. Are you ready? Here we go. Your journey reads like an epic transformation. You heard a bit of that up front. Leaving a high-powered career, confronting personal failures along the way, diving deep into wisdom transitions. Let's start with the moment everything changed for you. So here we are in Plato's garden. What was a catalyst, Fabrice, that led you to step away from this corporate world and began this deeper journey?
It was the realization that I was not enjoying myself. And I had after leaving McKinsey, I joined a bank and had a pretty high-powered job that would lead me to potentially becoming the CEO of a bank, which was my dream.
Was that in France?
No, it was in Singapore and Indonesia.
I see.
Yeah. And so I had followed the path, right? I had followed the dream, work hard, become a successful executive, rise to the top. And when I got there, I realized this has no meaning for me. So while everyone around me thought, oh my God, Fabrice is doing so well, I was feeling really miserable inside, really.
Yeah.
And that prompted the awakening. Now, it sounds great, when I tell the story like that. And I think to a certain extent, I wish that on people, to go through the awakening, but also I don't wish it because it's really painful.
And how old were you when you were in that role at the bank there? You're 60s now.
Yeah, I just turned 61, actually.
Oh.
I was 40 when I left McKinsey.
Yeah.
And joined the bank that was one of my clients. But I think that was really reaching the end of, this high-powered, high-charging executive, right? I could have done a number of things when I left McKinsey, but I thought, I'm going to push through, right? And go to the bank and run that consumer banking business. And that really didn't do it for me. So I was 42 when I left the world for good.
Well, first of all, congratulations. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, 42, CEO. And here's the thing, this is us riffing back and forth. That's what this is, storytelling. So you evoke some things in me about my own life. I remember saying to someone last year on an interview that I had this dream when I was a kid and I got out of high school that I wanted to be a CEO. And then later, when I became that level in my career, I remember thinking back, reflecting and saying, I didn't even know what a CEO was. I didn't know what it was. And in a talk I gave, I said CEO. Nobody told me it stands for crack emotionally often, CEO. So I wondered as a child with my brain where I had that influence, why I wanted to be a CEO. So let's take you into the micro part of Plato's Garden here. I'm going to throw something else out at you. Every leader has moments of triumph, but also deep struggles. And let's explore some of those. So you're at the top of the business. What made you realize that traditional success wasn't enough? And then on the crash, I'll call it, before the rise, in your own words, you said, I read somewhere, failures driven by ego, selfishness, and fear. Share one of those pivotal moments or anything at all. Just talk to us about that.
Well, I was brought up in a middle-class family, so I think a lot of people will resonate with that.
Yeah.
We didn't lack of anything, but there was absolutely no luxuries, no extras, no, fancy holidays and the rest. And so I think building a comfortable life and achieving financial success, whatever that means, was very important. And so I chose careers, there's no accident that I went into financial services and not in, steel manufacturing, right? Because, follow the money track.
Yeah.
And so that was one predominant driver for me, was to achieve financial success fairly early on. And I would say at any cost, really, right? So it was focused on me and achieving success for myself. So I tended not to really have a lot of consideration for others. Not that I was like an Uber jerk. I still have.
I can't see you as that personally.
No, but you wouldn't necessarily have liked the Fabrice when I was 25 or 30 or 35.
What did it look like? Draw us a picture. Was it your tone, your style, your hard driving, your arrogance, or what was that?
Yeah, a bit arrogant. Very selfish, I think, in terms of just thinking, is whatever I'm doing, is this good for me?
Yeah.
And having considerations for others. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a sadist. I don't enjoy making people suffer or anything like that. So there was, it was not completely outrageous, but the choices I made were choices that were benefiting me.
Yeah. And you were married later in life, or because I know that you went through a divorce as well. Were you married at that time?
No, I was married fairly young. I married at 28.
I see.
And that was probably I was probably not ready, right? I had no preparation for marriage. No one told me, this is how you do it.
Sure.
And so that didn't work very well, and I should say mostly because of me. but it didn't work very well. However, we stayed married for quite a long time. We have a daughter who's now 25, and she lives in Singapore.
Wonderful.
With me. So yeah.
What's her first name?
Celia.
That's beautiful. Congratulations on your daughter. So again, many threads in our stories. It's funny, Fabrice, and everybody listening. I've never met Fabrice, and Fabrice came through a referral to the show, and so here we're talking in all these threads. I mean, I got married when I was 21, and lasted 7 years, and I was interviewed about my life in that time, and I said it didn't. And when I teach, I do training of business people. I say it wasn't because of her; it was because of me. I didn't realize how I could make a better relationship with her. So that's very interesting. My daughter's 27, just graduated university and just got married. And so these things are making oxytocin flood my brain, making me say, I like you, Fabrice. I think we're going to keep talking for a while. Let's go further to something I put on screen. I know you're traveling and you don't have it with you, but what's this we have up there?
That's the book I published 3 years ago.
Read the title out.
The Art of Retreats,
a
leader's journey toward clarity, balance, and purpose.
Okay, now I'm going to take it off the screen. I'm going to get excited here for a minute. I never get excited, but I read lots of books, and I loved your book. So I've read it cover to cover. You've given me an advance copy of it in a different form until it arrives. I'm going to weave us into now what I call METSO, the sector of the industry shift. So, I mean, you're a CEO of Singapore. You talked a little bit about your upbringing. By the way, when did you leave home? What age?
I left home very early. I left home at 18 to go to university, and I left my country at 24.
Okay. So just in that is a lot of change. And what did your mom and dad do? Were they career people?
My dad was a civil servant in the Ministry of Finance. My mother was primarily a housemaker.
I see. Interesting. My father was a military commanding officer, teacher. My mom was a homemaker too, raising 3 boys. Who shaped you the most, do you think? Or did you find things in both your parents' teachings that were positive and negative influences? Because all of our parents have those on us, even though we love them.
Yeah, it's I think a little bit of both, but my mother was really a fun-loving lady, and she was very driven by the heart.
Yeah.
So she taught me to appreciate the good things in life. And my dad is very brainy, analytical, extremely bright, and he guided me. You know, there's a few times in childhood when you have the potential to screw up massively, and I never missed an opportunity to explore how can I screw up. And he brought me a couple of times on the right path. And I'm immensely.
Okay, now that you put it out there, give us one big screw up and how he brought you back.
Oh, I was going to give up essentially France has a very elitist system, and I was going to, because I was good in mathematics, I was on the fast track and the main path. Yeah. And at some point when I was, I don't know, 16 or 17, I thought, I'm going to go and do something else, study technology or whatever. And he said, like, are you mad, right? And he said, you're gonna keep studying mathematics and physics, and you'll go to the best engineering school, the best engineering university in the country, which I did, and that has served me. Obviously, you go to one of the elite schools, and the rest is easy. You're done for life. However, I'll show you one thing.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if I had followed my path. But I always dreamt of being a pilot, an airline pilot. That was my childhood dream. And
why? Because you saw the planes in the sky, or where'd you?
Yeah. Well, we spent a couple of years because of my father's postings in Corsica, which is an island in the Mediterranean, and we were living, across the airport, so I could see planes taking off and landing in the distance. And Corsica is an absolutely marvelous, beautiful island. And so there would be the dark blue sky and the mountains, and would see planes on approach. And I say, oh my God, that's totally what I want to do. And I had an opportunity to do a few flights at that time, and I said, that's what I want to do. And to this day, So of course my dad came and he says, "Are you mad or what? Like, airline pilot, what are you talking about?" and I think I would have had a good life as a pilot. And I have a number of friends who are pilots, with Singapore Airlines and Air France, etc. And they have good lives, and they love what they do a lot more than most of the corporate executives I work with.
Yeah, I can see you in a plane flying, looking out the window for sure. You're very
fit.
fit.
Well, I did it eventually. When I learned flying and I got the pilot licenses, so I could live the dream, but not as a professional pilot.
Yeah, I know. In my the height of my career, especially traveling as a CEO, Canada, U.S., particularly a little bit of Europe, but I had a friend who flew a single engine prop. And man, I never sat in that, but he took me up and he let me hold the stick, right? And it freaked me out, but it was the coolest thing, especially feeling that control. And then when we came down, it was like you're gliding. And the other experience is if you go from Vancouver to Vancouver Island here, Fabrice, where I used to take trips, you take the helijet, it's a helijet helicopter or the float planes, and they always let somebody sit up in the co-pilot. What a magnificent feeling. So I think thank you for sharing that with you. Your life's been about, flying high and soaring through different things. That's a very cool story, part of your story. What about mom, just very quickly? And then did your parents have a good relationship? Was there anything in your life where you didn't feel it was nurturing or where it maybe shaped you in a way that made it tough, but shaped you to be tough?
Yeah, no, I think, look, I wouldn't qualify it as a good relationship. It was probably, on a scale of 0 to 10, probably a 2 or a 3. But they were unique,
Why?
They fought all the time.
Yeah.
And I was born in the 60s, right? This is not a time where you necessarily, divorce at the same rate as you do today. So, but, they were united in creating a good future for me.
Right.
And so they stayed together, and that worked. I really cannot say that I had a bad childhood, right?
That's awesome.
But I didn't have models of what the happy family looks like, which is why probably I screwed up my first marriage, because I had no references of how is that supposed to look like.
Well, this is very insightful. Thank you, because my wife's Italian. We'll be married 30 years next January. My first one was 7 years. But it's interesting you say this, because I come across this with a lot of men, and including me, because my dad left home when I was 12. He was addicted to alcohol, and he was a military guy. He used to fly helicopters, so he had a bit of that in him, like you talked about. But if I ask myself, how did I know my dad loved me? Then I find it was when he said you did a good job with your homework, or the chores were done really well. So it was always about material things. And I came across something called the Circle of Security. It's research at a Washington University, which I just want to share this with you for context. I didn't see this till recently, but children need nurturing. They need nurturing. They want you to support their exploration. They want to feel they can be loved and comforted. And when some of that's missing for whatever reason, and in my life, it was my dad not saying I love you, my dad leaving, what I found myself doing is going to replace that missing condition of a good, nurturing childhood with something else. And for me, it was workaholism and other things. I had to have the best car, the best job, etc. All came changing. That's why your work really caught my attention. So I want to go back to the book here and let you talk about that for a little bit. I just read something out and then have you explain it to us. Everyone, The Art of the Retreats, Fabrice's wonderful book, explores the necessity of inner peace for business leaders, navigating a world dominated by relentless pressure, constant connectivity, culture of perpetual growth, et cetera, et cetera. He blends Eastern wisdom traditions, modern management insight, and psychological research, et cetera. Put the picture of the book back on the screen. So in part one, I like how you've written the book in different parts, but in part one, understanding the challenges and roles of retreats, you talk about the modern leader's dilemma. The hustle culture keeps leaders constantly moving, but often disconnected from themselves. Tell us about that.
Well, leaders have a very tough life these days because it's the pressure is extremely high, and it's not like it's very popular if you say, guys, I'm going to take a day off just to retreat and think. So there's this constant pressure to do more and more and more.
Sure.
And I see all the organizations I work with and the tremendous pressure. That is not a very good recipe for reflection and contemplation and taking a little bit of distance.
Yeah.
So in a way, I wrote the book that I wish I had as a guide when I was growing up in the leadership ranks. I looked around and read tons of books. Many were excellent. But this is really the book I wish I had by my side as a leader to guide me into balancing, the world of action, of doing stuff and achieving more. Yes. and achieving targets but also the world of being and contemplation, and always being able to take a little bit of distance and reflecting on what we do, and is this really the right thing?
I see.
And connecting the two, right? So it's not like the world of contemplation and the world of action has to be disconnected. It's really integrating the two.
Yeah, it's one of the big breakthroughs for me in reading it was about retreats can be personal retreats. Just talk a bit about that. One of the cool things I wrote down here I'm just going to put another action cam so everybody can see my notes. I've taken pages of notes from your book, my friend. Oh my goodness. I'm going to share this and honor you, but I'm learning. I've learned so much, but I've got this long list that says things I like. And let me just pull this up here. It was about the way you structured the book and the paragraphs. And there was some, here it is. A short retreat at home, and you had almost like a checklist of how you create your little retreat at home. So just talk to us about that. What does retreat do, and what is it when it's at home?
Yeah, well, the reason why I did that is because, look, we have a lot of spiritual traditions that tell us about retreats. But the barrier to entry is quite high. Like you need to go to a place and stay there for 10 days in silence with one meal a day and something, that for most people, they think like, are you mad, right? This is going to make me miserable. Yeah. So I said, well, look, why don't you start with 1 hour at home? But it's an hour of silence and solitude. And when I say silence, it's like not talking and disconnecting all the devices. And solitude means, you stay by yourself, and then maybe have a journal and start writing down what comes through your mind. And you see, very few people do that. We want to be distracted. We're terrified of boredom. And so as soon as we stop one thing, we jump to the next, and in between, if I have to wait 10 seconds for the bus to arrive or for my turn at the coffee shop, I'm not going to stand in line like that for 10 seconds. No, I'm going to have to check my phone. I'm going to have to do something to distract my mind. And so we live in a permanent state of distraction. And so I said, try 1 hour, and sit with it and see what happens. Yeah. And if it works for you, over time, expand 2 hours, 4 hours, 1 day. And devices, mobile phones, tablets, computers, etc., are the main source of distraction today. We're completely hooked and addicted to the devices, and they bring complete distraction from what is happening with us and with the world around us. And so disconnecting from the devices, what I call silence, is really the breakthrough to start reconnecting with your life. And so I thought, okay, if I tell people go and do a digital detox for a week, they're going to throw my book away. And so I said, well, try for an hour. I'm not saying even 1 day, because for most people, I kid you not, but most people, if I say try 1 day without devices, most people are not going to be able to do it. Sure.
That's amazing. I remember doing a program once, transformational, years ago. It was called the mental diet, something like that. And it was partially with unplugging devices, but it included also no TV, no phone calls, no newspapers, no nothing, first thing in the morning. So what happens to the brain or the body, just if you can explain in layman's terms, when you do that, say for an hour, and when you do it, say in the morning, you unplug, no devices, what type of things are happening there?
Well, the level of stimulation will decrease very quickly, right? So we live in a state of hyper stimulation that generates dopamine and all the good stuff that we love and that we're addicted to. And suddenly, if we cut the devices and we are by ourselves, and look, it could be at home, it could be a walk. If you have nature near you, go for a walk, in the forest. I mean, where you live is absolutely marvelous for the connection with nature.
It is.
And so, make the best of your surroundings and start seeing what happens when you're not constantly distracted.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, the state of how, mankind has lived for the first million years, except the last 10 or 25, right? Yeah. So, but we quickly became addicted to our distraction. So reconnect, and then you'll see, you'll start noticing things that happen within you, and you'll start noticing things around you.
Yeah.
And my point is, if you're in a position of leadership, that is going to make you a so much better leader.
Yeah. And leaders go fast, right? They don't. I sometimes will say, I catch myself saying, one thing we all have in common as leaders is there's not enough time in the day, right? And if I share this with you, and go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to, and by the way, we have a badge of honor to say, oh my God, I'm so busy. Eh? If I ask you, how are you doing, Tom?
That's right.
Say, well, I'm busy, and busy equal good.
Yeah.
But, try saying, actually, I'm not that busy. How can I help you?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
How often do you hear that in the corporate world? Hey, Fabrice, how are you doing? I assume you're very busy, but no, actually, I'm not busy.
Yeah.
How can I serve?
Yeah, I think your comment there is transformational, and it's true. The generational divide, there's a shift happening, right, from next gen, or from the boomers and the older leaders to the next gen. It's very interesting because I bring my daughter back into this. She's 27, Fabrice, and can I just share this quickly with you in context?
Please.
It's an emotional moment for me, and I know you're a guy who still holds a safe space for people to share. Thank you for that. And when my daughter graduated high school, she was accepted for multiple universities. And then she said she wanted to go back east to a university called Mount Allison. It's actually written up in Maclean's magazine in Canada as the top undergraduate school. She just graduated in engineering. I love her. She just got a job as interim executive director in a firm that is they look after the wetlands, so it's the environmental type work. She was working there during school, and the leader left on mat leave, so they offered her the job. And she sent a text, and her mom and I were crazy happy. But here's the thing. When she left home, she wasn't happy with me. And in some conversations privately, and I don't mind sharing this, she said, I said, why are you going all the way over there? She said, well, you were never home. And it hurt. And I was a frequent flyer, not a frequent father. And I could never get her to understand that when I got into the corporate sector, they gave me an executive assistant. They gave me a board of directors. They said, Tom, you're going to be on an airplane. They control my time. And nobody taught me how to manage myself, my time. I started burning out. When she got this job, the last part of the story, and then I'll ask you for your feedback on this. I was talking to her, and she was a bit stressed, and she said, oh, the board meeting's coming up. So it's her first board meeting, 27 years old. Nobody's teaching her how to do this. She said, and then Saturday I was talking to her, and she never worked Saturday. And she was coming back from some event that she said, I had to go to a strategic planning meeting with this company involved with us. And I've had this thought. I thought, there's nothing I could do now that better than to teach my daughter about my experience. She's now in a role and her life's out of control. That's what happens when we get into these high leadership roles. But then comes a guy like you who can teach us. So I'm going to give it back to you with a thought to pull this all together for us. This is getting into the sector. You now work with CEOs and high-performing executives, like I just was explaining myself. What's broken in today's leadership culture? What is it? There's an illusion of success, the retreat paradox, spirituality in business, all these things. Just talk to us. Give us your advice.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing the story of you and your daughter first. I was wondering, what prompted the awakening that you made you leave the corporate world and decide to be more available, because that's a turning point.
Yeah. It was simple. I experienced for the first time in my life burnout, And so I had to see a naturopathic doctor, and I would sit with an IV in my arm on a BlackBerry, texting my boss doing business, and I kept pushing it and pushing it, and I had adrenal fatigue, which if you know anything about burnout. So I got myself well, and then I started realizing my daughter never saw me, and that's what it was. It's like, I don't want this pain anymore, so I got to get my way out of this. And then the company did a restructuring, and I found myself not wanting to move. And so I decided to, at that point, to go seeking and reinvent myself. It took hitting the bottom with my health.
Yeah, yeah. See, the reflection that your story inspires to me is that I think it would be wrong to throw the leadership baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Leadership is such a one. If anyone is lucky enough to be able to reach the ranks of senior executives, senior leadership in whatever corporations, government, public sector, it doesn't matter. But where you have resources and power, etc. This is fantastic because you can choose what do you do with that.
Sure.
And unfortunately, and which is why I love positions of leadership and I admire them in my clients. But the question is, what do you do with that? And you get carried away. And it sounds like you, like me, like many others, we get carried away, worshiping the wrong idols. Instead of thinking, what's right with us that we could dedicate a little bit more time. And it probably would not have meant, I need to give up my corporate career to be able to find a bit more balance and more time with my loved one. Sometimes it is, and then you need to make the choice. But in most cases, actually, I find that you can restore the balance without necessarily giving up on your ambitions and finding accommodations that allow you to spend quality time with your loved ones and work on your health and work on your spiritual growth without necessarily giving up on your ambition. Now, it might mean that, let's take, for example, the opportunity to become a CEO and say it's a large company, it's a large publicly listed company, and you're called to becoming the CEO.
Right.
Okay. Now you're going to have to make a choice because if you accept the job, you're probably not going to have a very balanced life.
Yeah.
So
true.
You decide for yourself what is right and do I want it or do I not want it. But for most people, say one or two levels below that, you can try to find balance, and there's many ways in which you can do that. One of which is, and is what I recommend in the book, which is to take periods of contemplation, and that will allow you to recalibrate.
Yeah.
So I'm struck by your story because that's a typical story of, I think many people will relate to your story of not spending enough time with the loved ones because we don't get immediate. I mean, yes, it's gratifying to spend time with the loved one, but really, what it does over 20 years is build deep relationship, right?
Absolutely.
With your daughter, with your wife, etc. But if we don't do that, we can get the instant gratification of taking one more phone call, one more meeting, one more email, and that gives me an immediate gratification. Whereas an hour spent with my daughter, I don't see the impact immediately because I will see the impact in 20 years if I do that regularly. And so sometimes we worship the wrong idol.
Yeah. I just want to jump in and riff with you. Thank you for that. I like that line, everybody come back teaching moment on the show with Fabrice. Listen and watch this again. We worship sometimes the wrong idols. I kind of chuckled reading your book. Everyone, let's put it back up on the screen and give it a plug again. The Art of Retreats. Wonderful book. And so I chuckled when I was reading it because I found myself reading it, and something you said in there about, do you find yourself when you have personal time home where you can't make time because you have to go send this one more email or you have to go do this one more task? And I started nodding. And I think everyone watching this, if you're in any type of a life of business who understands that, I was doing that. And I taught my whole family that, hey, if I leave the movie and go to my office because I have to, this priority for the board, it's okay. But I'd like to know your feedback on this. What I didn't ever think about is what my actions are teaching my children. It's teaching them how to be as well. And so are those good habits. The last thing I want to share and get you to talk about is the power of, you talk about meditation and journaling and retreats. The book's about retreats. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been to retreats, and one of the things I did for about 5 years is I ran peer groups. I worked for an organization outside of my own practice, and I had groups of CEOs, and I was chairing their group. So we would have once a month meeting and then a 2-day retreat. So I was the guy who had to actually organize the retreats. That's why your book floored me, because there's so much in it I should have known. But what I found is that in those retreats, okay, if we said the first day is fun, so let's go do scuba diving, zip lining, playing around of golf, the guys were like all over it, the guys and gals. But as soon as we put them in a room and we said, we're bringing in a yoga teacher and teaching you how to do yoga, or we're bringing in Fabrice, who's going to lead us to a round of breath work and meditation, everybody gets uncomfortable. So help the audience understand in the work you're doing, what causes that discomfort, and then how do you help leaders make that shift where they can start doing some of these other things that create that balance and that better being in touch with themselves, their better health, all of that.
We've just lost our spiritual connection mostly. And if people have a spiritual life, they keep it very private. It's no longer okay to say, look, we are working together, but we're serving a higher purpose. It's not okay to say that, right? So what I hear in the corporate world is we're working for the sake of the share price. We're working for the sake of net profits.
Yeah.
That is okay. It's perfectly okay to say that. But if we say, we're trying to create a better future, you can say that for your annual report and it's a pile of BS, but no one believes in it anymore. We've lost that deeper connection to a sense of purpose. Why are we doing this? For the sake of what? Who will care in 20 years about what we're doing today? And that loss of connection makes us very, very lost. And I think that's why it's important to, particularly for the work that you described, take your team on a retreat. To you spend time saying, why are we doing this? For the sake of what? And it doesn't have to be esoteric and to go into all kinds of weird considerations. But are we doing it for our employees? Are we doing it because we're good corporate citizens? Because we want to delight our customers? And yes, if you do things that are good and true and beautiful, as your Plato would say, right? And the Greek philosophers, money will follow.
Yes,
money will always follow. When you do something that is good, money will follow. And that's why I loved McKinsey, and I'm not going to advertise my firm or anything like that. But in 25 years ago, we had this intimate conviction that if we do what is right for our clients, we don't need to worry about money.
Yeah, I believe wholeheartedly. Absolutely.
That's what that's the logic that underpins the work that I do today. Is I never look at the economics. I'm probably the worst partner in the firm because I never look at any report. I really can't be bothered. I only have one objective, which is to serve my clients and to be a good colleague for my partners and my consultants. That's the only thing that matters to me. That's the only checklist at the end of the day when I do my examination, the reflection. It's like, did I do the best I could for the clients? Did I do the best I could for my colleagues? Yeah. And I never look at any management reports because I trust implicitly that if I do that, the financial outcomes will follow. And in the corporate world, we've turned it upside down. There's only one thing that matters. It's the financial outcomes.
The bottom line.
To achieve financial outcomes, we'll do whatever it takes. Like don't bother me with doing what's right and this and employee. We need to cut costs. 1,000 people here, just let them go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Can we shave a little bit of customer service? Maybe replace the proper tissue napkins with paper because it's cheaper. They won't notice. Let's just make an additional bug there. And that is a very, very dangerous slope. Very dangerous slope.
There goes that affects the customer experience. I've been there. I understand that. It's interesting you talk that way. I go back to re-engineering, back to childhood, back to being mentored or perhaps influenced by our fathers and then our bosses. And I think about when I was in my top job, I was looking at the bottom line. You know why? Because the board was looking at it. My direct reporting oversight manager in Atlanta, Georgia, he was always would phone, and that's the only thing he wanted to talk about. So it's self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's why I think your book about the art of retreats and all those specifics, refocus, is very important. The one thing I wanted to ask you about the retreat part is when you're dealing with a client, can you think back without breaking any confidentiality of a pivotal moment with a client where they made this shift, and what is the core of what you're trying to accomplish with what you're teaching through your principles, through your work?
So I do one-on-one work,
Yeah.
mostly with CEOs and senior executives, and then I do teamwork.
I see.
And the two are quite different because the dynamics are different.
Yes.
In the one-on-one work, I'm just a guide, and I listen to the clients and I reconnect them to themselves.
Yes.
So very often the starting point is, I got this job, I need to achieve these things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But let's say, okay, what does that really mean for you? Right? And how are you coping, and how are you going to organize to achieve these things? And what do these things mean, really, truly? Like, once you achieve them,
yeah,
what happens? Because very often, they've told me to boost the sales to $1 billion. Okay, well, when you achieve it, they will say, well, nice job. Can you do 2 billion now? And so it never stops, which means that, we're constantly on the treadmill. So part of my work is to support clients in realizing, what is really happening here, and what gives sort of a sense of meaning to my journey. Because all these targets that we're getting, handed down by the board or whatever, this is like just numbers. There's no reality to them, right? I'm not saying don't achieve your targets because that will get you fired, but there's no meaning to it.
Yeah.
So what creates meaning for you? And then we can go deeper. So I meet clients wherever they are. Some clients are very, very spiritual. Others couldn't care less, and that's perfectly fine for me. But then we go deeper into existential questions of what meaning and purpose, and what is the journey you're on, and what is going to make this journey fulfilling and enjoyable and meaningful for you. There's no destination. I mean, the ultimate destination is we die, right? So that's the only destination.
Yeah, I'm going to put the book back up there again, just to bring it into focus. That was one of the things in the book that caught me off guard. Chapter 10, Embracing Death. Man, I'm reading along, and by the way, everybody, in Fabrice's book, the chapter before that was about something about the emotional map. So you can explain what that is briefly, mapping out emotions. I learned this through neuroscience when I had a brain injury I had to recover from, a concussion. That the thought, I explain it this way, that correct me and tell me how you explain it, but thoughts, your head is a thought machine. Thoughts create emotions, create behavior, but the body carries the emotion. I never thought about that way. And so if I have 60, 70,000 thoughts a day going on over and over, and I don't feed that machine to create new thoughts, maybe more healthier, then the body, the emotional state of the body stays the same. And therefore you keep hitting these emotional walls. And so then you talked about embracing death, and then expanding wisdom, and then finding purpose. Just pull all that together for us in terms of what you mean. Just if you're coaching somebody or teaching somebody.
Yeah, well, if you weave it all together, we're on the journey.
Yeah.
We haven't chosen to come here, but we can choose what is the journey, what is the path that we walk.
I see.
And I think there's my friends in the Navy say, there's no favorable winds to sailors who don't know where they're going. And so where are you going? And that's not necessarily, a grand purpose. Sometimes I hear people saying, my purpose in life is to solve for this or alleviate poverty. You don't need a grand purpose, but what is the direction of the journey? What gives you day after day, not in 10 years, but day after day today, what gives you a sense of meaning and fulfillment? And when I ask that question to the clients I work with, they struggle to find that answer. And so we can look at it from various angles. I think reflecting on the fact that we're going to die, and if you color little squares, say put 90 squares, assuming that your life expectancy is 90 years in total, right? Sure. And how old are you, Tom?
60.
60. Okay, so color 60 squares black.
Yeah.
And look at the picture, and you see 60 black squares, and there's 30 white squares that haven't been colored, and that's the time you have left.
I know, it's striking. Whoa.
And when you visualize it like that, you say, oh my God, it's like not a lot of time, right? How many times am I going to have a chance to hug my daughter? How many times am I going to have a chance to hug my parents? And you realize, man, how do I make this count?
Yes.
And making it count is not the hedonistic pursuit of pleasure or fame, or because that doesn't last.
Yes.
I want something that gives me a sense of meaning, that gives me a sense that I matter.
Yeah.
My life won't be wasted.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I know a couple of times I've been downsized in my career. Nothing long term, just through restructuring. And I've been through maybe 12 mergers, transactions. That's how much my career has varied. 5 different sectors. It's been crazy until I created my own platform in 2016. But it was 2 years after I stopped my professional. So this would be akin to your story of being a paid CEO and then creating your own public works, which is what we're trying to determine why and what you're doing, which, by the way, it's amazing what you're doing. So I create this platform, and then my dad dies in 2018, and then I'm doing a bike ride to raise funds for cancer. In 2018, I fall on my head, and I have a serious brain injury, and everything stops. And one of the things I reflected on is, isn't it true? I, like many of the people I know in business, define ourselves by our career, by what we do. And when that stopped for me, those 2 times in my life, Fabrice, oh my gosh, I went into depression. I don't mind sharing that. I battled through it, and I'm healthy now. I took psychology, psychiatry, but wow, I had that revelation of all the things I wanted to do. And I started thinking about death and how much time I have left. And what I realized is, when you think you have a lot of friends, when you leave a high-powered or high-level position, your world gets very small in terms of friendships. And as you know, through mental health, in order to get healthy, it has to be through another. 2 people having a relationship. Oxytocin floods because we're talking, we like each other. So I learned a lot through that. And I think that's the power of your book and what you're teaching us. That I think if I was to teach my daughter and redo it over again, it's like, see, you can still be that executive director, my dear, but you can still weave in there and find time to go play tennis or go hug your baby or go, buy a dog and do the things, because you can make the time. We control our time. Just remarkable what you've taught us. I want to just shift to the last segment here, which is the macro global view, and throw a few evocative things out at you. Disagree or agree, comment. Leadership isn't just about boardroom. It shapes economies, cultures, the world at large. So we hear a lot about burnout, crisis, quitting, breaking down, losing our purpose. And then there's the next era of leadership. If we don't rethink leadership, where are we headed? And the ultimate legacy, you speak about death, purpose, and all these things. What does a life well led look like to you? Anything at all?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. What's led the world to the state it is right now is this loss of connection to something that is greater than us, right? So we can call it God, we can call it the divine, we can call it the universe, whatever. But I think we've come to a point where we feel very lonely, and we have to do whatever it takes to get a bit more pleasure, a bit more money, etc., without consideration that actually we are all part of a greater universe. And so I think the balance is going to shift. I can see a lot more interest and search of spirituality, and there's a return towards the traditional path. People have tried to create their own spirituality. They say, I don't like organized religion, etc. So I'm going to create my own. And then we got the New Age with all the accumulation of essentially stuff that makes absolutely no sense, right? So people are going back to traditional spiritual traditions that, for good or for bad, have been around for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. And they show us a path to say, look, there's nothing wrong with material success and living a good life and enjoying the pleasures of life, but we have to put that in perspective with what that means for us and our relationship to something greater than us. I think we're going back there. I'm trying to speed that up in the corporate world, one CEO at a time, one team at a time, one board at a time.
Yeah.
Because the sooner we restore the balance between, say, performance and purpose, and the connection between performance and purpose, instead of saying, these two are completely disconnected, the better off we will be as a species.
That's very insightful. Everybody, we're here with Fabrice, who's the author of The Art of Retreats and does work with McKinsey, coaches and teaches, has had a career as an executive, as you've heard, come back and connect the dots. Fabrice, it's really fascinating to me, because I think you're right. In my mind, the world ahead. It's funny, the universities are struggling with one thing. They don't know how to teach a world. They don't know what it's going to look like. But there's one thing that I've learned through my journey, and you've taught us today, and that is that if you want to get the most out of yourself in performance, if you're not sleeping well, doing your meditation, looking after your mind and your body, your soul, spending time with what's important in your life, maybe feeling fulfilled and getting your passion outside of your career so that you can feel like you're making a difference, then you don't perform at the highest level. You're burning out and you're not healthy. Your mind is always going. It doesn't have the rest. And you define that very well in your book. So I want to thank you for that. Now I want to surprise you with a review for your book. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right, my friend. This is posted today on Amazon.ca. So it's an international review. I'm going to put it on screen and read it. And I still have some bit of latency with my convergence in my vision, so bear with me. I'm going to read it out to honor you, and this you'll be able to find on Amazon. So for Fabrice's book, everyone, I titled it 5 out of 5 stars, A Leadership Reset, The Power of Strategic Retreats. Reviewed today, Canada. The Art of Retreats, A Leader's Journey Toward Clarity, Balance, and Purpose by Fabrice is a must-read for any leader seeking a more profound sense of purpose, resilience, and clarity. Unlike typical leadership books focusing solely on execution, this one advocates for a more holistic approach, balancing action with contemplation. The book stands out because of its practical yet profound methodology to personal retreats. I'll call you Fabrice. I still can't get your name there. Mr. D doesn't just encourage leaders to take time off. He offers a structured approach to creating retreats that restore energy, sharpen decision-making, and deepen leadership impact. The 4 pillars of retreats, silence, as he says, solitude, space, and spirit, form a blueprint that can be applied wherever you're taking a 2-hour break or an entire week-long retreat. This book is especially relevant in today's corporate world, where the always-on mindset leads to burnout and poor decision-making. Mr. D argues that outstanding leadership is not about working harder, but creating the conditions for deeper thinking, creativity, and resilience. His blend of Eastern wisdom with Western leadership strategies makes The Art of Retreats a transformative guide. And who should read this? In my opinion, CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs who feel overwhelmed by constant demands, coaches and leadership advisors looking for structured retreat methodology, anyone interested in combining mindfulness with strategic decision-making, including my daughter. If you're ever felt like you're running out on autopilot and need a way to reset, this book provides the ultimate roadmap. Highly recommended. Congratulations. A little cheap applause there from
you're making me blush, man.
Okay. Well, it's a high praise. One of the things I do with the show is I read the books. I can't do it with integrity, but you can repurpose some of the clips I make for you to actually market and show people. So hopefully that one helps you. And finally, one more thing to honor you, and then we'll move to getting the last word from you. I'm going to put this on the screen here. Let me change the screenshot there, see if I can get that. No, that's not the one. That's not it. Let's go there. Hold on. Let me just see If no, I'll leave it at that one, Fabrice, because you look so good. By the way, you're fit. Do you lift weights, or how do you keep them fit? You look like you're got some pretty good.
I do a lot of cardio, yoga, and weightlifting.
Yeah, very good. They say as you get to that stage, like the core, strengthen the legs, all very important. So I'm going to honor you with some leadership words. I write these as you're speaking. They're not scripted. This comes out of what I know and learned about you. 4 of them. The first one is Maven. When somebody wants to know about retreats and this spiritual journey, finding the high performance, your name is in the book. The second word is wisdom. They say the difference between knowledge and wisdom is time. That's why you're so valuable. Third one is communicator. And the last one, I'll be calling you transformational. And it's inspired us today on seeing what you shared about your own transformation. But what you've done is you've taken that and now you're teaching it and you're making the world better, one person at a time. So congratulations. And last is we're going to induct you with an award. Did you know you were getting an award today?
No, I didn't.
Okay, next time I ask you that, you're going to say, yeah, Tom, you told me you're getting an award. Do you know what a challenge coin is?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So some people collect them. My dad was an AA for 23 years, and I didn't realize he had his own coin. Challenge coins, this comes with a sleeve. So for the audience, challenge coins surfaced during World War I era. The practice of carrying a coin was designed specifically for a unit. It was popular with the Army Special Forces, Fabrice, carrying the coins at all times, presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation. And they had fun with it. If you didn't have your coin, you'd have to buy drinks, etc. And this goes on today. So when I started the show, I said I'm going to find the 1% of people in the world who are making a personal impact. And this is the coin, hand-painted and crafted and minted. The front is the hero's journey, and it's raised letters, unbiased. But the back of it is intricately the hero's journey narrative. It is so detailed. And you speak of that in your work as well. So congratulations. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior community.
I love it. Thank you, man.
You're welcome. We now have around 300 of around the world. And my dream is to populate the world by bringing your story to life one at a time. So let me get this off the screen here. And so I have one more thing to ask you, and that is, I call it the book unwritten. The book unwritten is if there's something on your mind you haven't done yet, or there's things in the way that are stopping you from doing this, changing the world in some way, or with everything you've done, what might the next chapter be about, or the next book? And then final word from you.
Yeah, so I have 2.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So one is on deepening spirituality. I really believe there's a huge opportunity to bring together leadership and spirituality. We've completely lost that, starting 150 years ago or 100 years ago and we need to bring back spirituality into leadership. So my next book will probably be on that topic, but there's also another topic that I'm very passionate about. We didn't have time to talk about it today, and that's fine, but it's the work of teams, because the world has become so complex that no single individual, no single CEO can be successful without a team that works as a team. Not everyone says they have a team, of course, but a real team that forms a collective consciousness. A little bit like a very high-performing football team or basketball team or symphonic orchestra,
like the rugby team in New Zealand, right?
For example,
the All Blacks.
for example, or a unit of the special forces.
Absolutely,
people united in the quest for a common objective that will do whatever to keep the team intact and support each other, but where everyone knows the role they have to play, and that unified consciousness for me is the holy grail of corporate teams.
Wow.
It works. I've transformed teams like that, and I think this is a very rich topic. So this is also very high on my mind.
Well, I put my hands together for you, my friend. There's been so much talk about teams, and that is a book that will be great when you get to it. Count on me to have you back, talk about it, early praise for it, whatever you want. And then finally, if there's one thing you haven't said to the audience yet that you want to say as we wrap up with you, anything at all, even if it's word to connect with you, get your book.
Yeah, start your day and leave your day coming from a place of love and not from a place of fear. The corporate world breeds fear. Organizations are, whether they're public, private, governmental, non-profit, whatever, are meant to bring fear in their employees. That's the whole management thinking, rewards, punishments, organization charts, control, command and control. I mean, like just the vocabulary that we use.
Absolutely.
Is meant to create fear. And so don't look at the world around you from a place of fear. Start from a place of love and approach every day from a place of love, and your world will transform.
I love it. That's going to stay with me for a long time. Approach every day from a place of love, and your world will transform. Man, that sounds like a new coin, something I got to put on back of a new coin. It's been wonderful having you here. You've taught us so much. Fabrice, come back again, will you?
I'd love it. And you've been such a fantastic partner for this conversation, Tom.
Thank you so much. I'm honored. Everybody, find that true passion like you see from Fabrice and discover your purpose and live the life that you deserve and desire. We'll see you again on the Quiet Warrior Show. There's lots going on. And Fabrice, stay in touch. It's been a pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, Fabrice, let's do something fun. Just draw that. I'm going to put the screen so we can see. Just show us Jakarta one more time. Let me see if I can get that. Oh, there it is. Everybody, that. Okay. Wow, what a beautiful city. What building are you in, or is it a hotel?
I'm in the Raffles Hotel.
Very nice. Well, I know you have business. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. I'm going to take us offline here, so ending the stream.